Hey everybody, it's Leigh and I'm here with Allison, and today on This Is Not Legal Advice, we're going to talk about revenge. Now, the last time we were here, we were talking about adultery, and if there's one thing that makes people want to get revenge, that's it. So, Allison, what do you ever work with people who are like, I'm going to get back at them?
I think it's the first, it's a gut, it's a base reaction. Whether we ever follow through on it, of course, the first thing we want to do is show that other person. And we've got so many different ways of doing that. So many stories playing out in our minds. However, do we really want to get revenge? Is that really the best course of action in the long run? It feels, in the short run, it feels so good. Even just thinking about it, fantasizing about it, talking about it to your girlfriends, it feels so powerful. But actually, on the other side of it, do we really want to live with the feelings that it brings us up? Leigh.
It sounds like jail time to me because I'm just telling you, I have a new, relatively new situation case where my client's wife was cheating on him for quite a while with somebody they both knew from school. They don't live here anymore, but somebody they both knew. And which happens all the time. People are connecting with their exes, and they start talking again, and the next thing you know, they're in a thing they shouldn't be in. And so he decides that since he's cheated with his wife, guess what? He's going to go cheat with that guy's wife. I know. I told you, I hear a lot. And so now they're divorced. These parties are divorced, long-term marriage as well. They're divorced, and they're both. So she's married to the guy, and he's dating the guy's ex-wife. And I'm telling you, this case is super hostile, and that revenge factor is running high on both sides. And, like I said, I mean, there are things that can get you in trouble. I mean, and a lot of times things that you think you're going to do for revenge are going to do just that. They're going to get you in trouble with the law, or it's going to be bad for your children, or, lots of different ways. And so these are just some of the ways I see people trying to get revenge. They turn the kids against the other party. Okay. They're going to alienate those kids because they didn't want to be with them anymore, or because there's a new husband or new wife, no visitation because you got married. I mean, really? And then of course I'm going to go cheat as well, or I'm going to send you harassing messages. Sometimes I see, damage to property, but most of the time it's more emotional damage.
Yeah.
People are trying to wreak on the other person. So what do you think about all that?
Yeah, no, I think, as I said before, I think the first base reaction we have is, I'll get him or I'll get her. But yeah, sit back, take time to think about it. The situation that you're talking about, I can't think of anything worse than being in a relationship where it's based on revenge, mutual revenge. How can you feel comfortable? How can you have a good, honest, loving, long-term relationship that started from that? Unless, of course, you sit down and you do some serious work and set some serious boundaries around it. But yeah, the idea of turning the kids against your partner, or holding your kids back and not allowing the partner to see, or changing the visitation rights, or changing the date or the time or whatever, just to get your partner back. The only people you're hurting there are the kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're the ones that are suffering. And actually, at the end of the day, because whilst as we talked about in our last podcast, that when you're thinking this, when you're thinking about revenge and when you're plotting and planning, you're also churning yourself up. And it's not that you act and it disappears. It stays within you. It stays churning and churning and churning, makes you feel awful. You hate yourself for doing it. You hate yourself for not being able to stop thinking about it. It's it's a lovely thought, but it's one that you really, in my opinion, you have to work really hard to let go, get rid of.
Okay, Allison, I actually laugh because you said it's a lovely thought. I don't, I personally don't think it's a lovely thought.
Oh yeah.
I have to say, I never have wanted to get revenge. I mean, and that's probably because of my own, maybe you do that if you're healthier, because I just always felt like it must be my fault, or I wasn't good enough, or I never even really blame the other person for whatever they did. And so I guess I took the revenge out on myself, and that's not good either.
Yeah.
Taking, because it's really not your fault if somebody does something that's hurtful to you or cheats on you. I mean, you shouldn't blame yourself. But when you act out of revenge, then you're really letting somebody else in charge of your life, in charge of who you are. Right. So I had a client one, and again, adultery is the number one thing. It brings out the absolute worst in people. And I had this client, and this really impacted me because he was such a religious man, right? So righteous, so good. I was so impressed with him, and what a loving man he was. I just want the best for her, even if she doesn't want to be married to me. And he was and I was like, you are so kind, and I was so impressed. Until he found out that she had a boyfriend. Then I want to take her kids from her. I want to make her pay. I'm going to leave her penniless. And I ultimately said, I can't represent you, because this woman wasn't a bad mom. And he had already told me she was a great mom. And yet I'm going to do all of these things because you had a boyfriend. I don't even know it was the boyfriend when they were married, but immediately after they separated, she started seeing somebody. So if you let who you are become completely affected by what somebody else has done, then you're not in charge of who you are anymore.
Yeah.
You're letting them run the show, their impact on you.
And they don't know it. They're not even aware of it. They have no idea that they hold the power over your life, your happiness. Yeah. And it doesn't even, as you were talking, I was thinking again about this idea, because revenge sometimes is something that does live in our own minds. It's something that we never, sometimes we don't even act out on, but it's just as dangerous when it's in your own mind, when you're thinking about it the whole time, because again, exactly as you said, somebody else is in charge of your happiness, your thinking, your well-being, your mental well-being, your physical well-being, because your mind is constantly playing the tape of what you could do, what you could say, what I should have done, what I could have done, what I will do. So even if you're not taking any action, even if you're not going out and I'm not letting the tires of the car down, or or spray painting the car, or doing whatever, whatever it is, when it's in your head, it's just as dangerous. It's just as dangerous for you, and you're not moving forward. You're not going to heal and move forward and find the next loving relationship. You're not in a position to do that.
Yeah, no, I mean, because and so I don't, and I've never really thought about this, but where do you think revenge stems from? Where does that come from?
I think it's self-protection. Self-protection, that our gut reaction, if you look at two toddlers rolling about in a sandpit, if one hits the other, the automatic reaction is to lash out and hit back. I think it's something primitive, to protect ourselves, but it doesn't, but then there's a point where it turns, and it's not a protection, and it's not a healthy mechanism. It's something that's actually causing us pain, because the whole time that we're playing this story in our minds, our partner is off, presumably living their life, having a great time, doing what they're doing, and they're none the wiser. They've got absolutely no idea of what's going on up here, or what we're plotting, as we sit in the early morning, unable to sleep.
Right.
So the only person that suffers at the end is us.
And I didn't read. I watched a movie called A Promising Young Woman, and it's a movie that just came out in the US, and I'm not going to give away the end, but the whole thing is about vindication and revenge, and it was such a good movie. But the character that, the lead character who is seeking the revenge is such an unhappy person, so miserable, so depressed, so fixated on the path of destruction she's going to wreak on these other people, that she doesn't, she's missing out on life completely. And that's what I think that, I do think it comes from a primal place. I mean, when I ask you that question, I never really thought about where in the heck does that even come from? Somebody's hurt me and now I'm going to go do whatever to them. But I think it must come from a more,
yeah, from something that we're not even, if you had, in your logical mind, if you could think it out, you wouldn't want revenge. Why would you? Why would you keep suffering?
It doesn't help. It does not help.
Yeah.
And people are often want to talk about how worried they are. And I always say, that's not helping. That's not helping, because there's, and then I want to take revenge. I want to make them pay. I mean, that's not my philosophy in practicing law. I think, and that's a whole nother story, but I don't think it helps anybody. No. Right. I mean, and when you want to get involved in a protracted lawsuit that could cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars, if you look at the whole, at the cost of litigation and the cost of losing ass, whatever, I mean, sometimes people just lose sight of all rational thought because of the revenge.
Because of revenge, exactly. And, and at the same time, whilst you're in that place, whilst you're thinking about it, you're also putting your own life on hold. You can't move forward. You can't, you can make plans to buy a new place, to go, but you're not enjoying it. You're not enjoying anything. Everything's bitter. Everything you do is bitter because it's run on this idea of revenge. So I don't know, how do you get rid of it? I think the only way is, but first of all, we have to be angry. You said anger isn't great. It's not great to take to your office, but still we need to let the anger out. We need to let the rage out. But that's something that's, again, it's a natural part of the process, but it's not something, once it's out, we need to let it go. It's not something we take out to see, what we can do with it, how we can use it. It's part of it, then we let it go, and then we move on to the next stage. And then we come and visit you.
And I'm right in the throes of the revenge. And I have a whole host of things, because sometimes people just want revenge because the other person doesn't want to be married anymore. And they want to get revenge. I mean, I see, but fortunately, I think I attract people that are of the same philosophy as I am, and they are the maybe more loving, gentler, even though we'll fight to the end if we have to, that's not where we go first.
No.
But I think that if you can't, first of all, don't do it. Number one, don't do it. Don't do whatever you're thinking. And then you have got to address it, like Allison says, somehow. With a counselor, with your pillow, you have to get it. You have to also address that. I mean, I think that all the things we talked about, you just have to be self-aware.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And that's it. The whole, everything we talk about, it always comes back to the same part. The reactions that we have are, they're all part of us, and our biggest job is to learn from them, is to look at them. And of course, when you're in the midst of a divorce or in the midst of somebody having an affair on you, or it's maybe not the time to say, okay, I need to work out what I'm going to learn. I need to grow from this. But there is a point where, we need to understand ourselves well enough to know why we're reacting, or to know why we're attracting what we're attracting, the people that we're attracting, or the situations that we keep finding ourselves in. Because that's something for another day. But we do tend to keep attracting the same type of situations, whether it's romantic relationships, or whether it's people putting on us, taking too much from us, expecting too much from us. That there are patterns to our relationships. There are patterns to our behavior, And it's really useful to be able to understand why and what we can do to change that.
Yeah, and I think that the thing about the revenge is that, or to me, when people come in into my office and they're totally fixated on this other person's actions, I always draw them back to them, right? Like,
Yeah.
what is it that you need right now,
Yeah.
or what is it that you can do? One lady is unfortunately, she's so worried about everything, and I've had the whole "don't worry" talk. That's not helping. And she says, I'm going to join a lobbyist because this is a perfect example of how things get blown out of proportion. I know how women get mistreated when they don't get their child support and blah, blah, blah. And I said, that hasn't happened. Your husband is not likely to do that. I mean, he's got a good job. He's a good provider. He's got money in savings. There's nothing to think that suddenly he's going to abdicate all of his responsibility and stop paying child support. Nothing, right? But the point is that people get so fixated on the other person that they completely lose sight of what they want and need. So I really think that one of the things to do is to try to bring yourself back and think about you.
Yeah.
I mean, you can get in some obsessive thinking for sure. If you're thinking about the revenge or adultery or all of these things can just really do a number on you. But you just have to keep bringing it back to, what do I need? How's this what can I do to be gentle with yourself, to make myself feel better in this situation?
Yeah, exactly. How can I give myself what I need? How can I make myself, feel at peace, even if it's just for a moment in this whole situation? How can I let go of those thoughts just for a moment? One of the women I love is Byron Katie.
Yeah.
And she has a beautiful 4 very simple questions that you can ask yourself that really take you away from it's all about what they're doing to me and bring you back to, okay, who would I be if I wasn't having these thoughts?
Right.
How would I feel if I wasn't so obsessed about worrying that he or she is going to do one on me? And when you work through that process, you say, okay, actually it would be nice just for a moment to feel that sense of peace and not be constantly living in the anxiety of what might happen.
Yeah, and so it's interestingly enough, Byron Katie's work is called The Work, and it's such a cool process. And you can look her up online, and you can print off the worksheet. I went to a whole weekend workshop in Florida where we went through these exercises, and they were so powerful. I mean, I really could see things in a different way after I did it, after I did the work. And so I would highly suggest that. I'm glad you brought that up, Allison.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Yeah.
And
It's very nice. It's very simple. It's not something that you have to spend hours and weeks and months in therapy for. It's something that you can do yourself. It does take a bit of being honest with yourself. Yeah, you have to, but that's not a bad thing.
It gets easier once you do the process. And
yeah.
I know there are practitioners that are certified all over the world as well. I would volunteer to try it, but I was just thinking, I don't know how that will go. I'm no expert. But anyway, so the last word is, the best revenge is living well.
Absolutely right. The best revenge is letting it go and living the life that you want to live. Perfect. Beautiful. I like your thinking.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thank you, and be sure and listen next time.
Okay. Bye, everyone.